Well, from a military standpoint, I mean, it's war. People get killed in war, and there's not 4 or 5 irreplaceable people. Even as we've seen with Hezbollah and the death of Nasrallah, he's not irreplaceable. I've heard that there were at least 5 dead, and the number of wounded goes up over 70. There's an interesting report out there claiming that the head of the Israeli army was actually at that facility and may have been one of the casualties. There's no confirmation of that. But you want to hit a dining facility, people think they're safe. And this is Hezbollah sending them a very clear message that Hezbollah is not defeated. Hezbollah is not going away.
The ongoing Israel conflict continues to escalate, with heavy losses on both sides. Recently, 4 young IDF soldiers were killed, and over 68 others injured in a drone attack targeting a dining facility on a base in southern Israel. Larry Johnson, a former CIA analyst and military expert, provided groundbreaking insights into the attack and its broader implications. While tragic, these losses are a reality of war, and Hezbollah's message was clear. They are still in fight, and they're not backing down anytime soon. Rumors also suggest that the head of the Israeli army might have been at the base during the attack, though this remains unconfirmed. Moreover, the drone attack was accompanied by ambushes in other areas, including an incident near a tunnel and more casualties in Gaza. In the context of the ongoing conflict, the political consequences of the casualties Israel is facing could start to parallel the situation the U.S. encountered during the Iraq invasion in 2003. Larry Johnson pointed out that during the early days of the U.S. invasion, the loss of 2 or 3 soldiers every few days shocked the American public, despite it being relatively small in comparison to larger wars. This sparked political opposition, and Johnson suggests a similar shift might happen in Israel. The wounded soldiers, particularly those with severe, life-changing injuries such as limb loss or traumatic brain injuries, add to the emotional and societal cost. As these numbers rise, Israeli society may begin to question whether the conflict and the strategy led by Netanyahu are worth the ongoing sacrifices. Apart from this, the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hezbollah has taken a troubling turn, with reports surfacing that the IDF fired at UN peacekeepers. These peacekeepers, part of the UNIFIL mission, which is a peacekeeping mission established by the United Nations in 1978 to oversee the withdrawal of Israeli forces from Lebanon and restore peace and security in the region, are tasked with maintaining stability in the region and preventing further violence. The political and military implications of such actions are severe, especially considering the UN Security Council's stance that UNIFIL forces are authorized to defend themselves if attacked. The situation can be likened to a deadly game where the peacekeepers are the referees, trying to maintain order while Israel seeks to eliminate as many Hezbollah forces as possible. This tension has escalated to the point where Israel is not only pressuring UNIFIL to leave the area, but also showing a blatant disregard for international norms. Despite Prime Minister Netanyahu's statement that Israel is doing everything possible to prevent harm to UNIFIL troops, such claims are hard to believe when those very troops are being targeted. Therefore, the ideology within Prime Minister Netanyahu's cabinet, particularly among certain Zionist factions, has become increasingly extreme. Statements from influential figures, such as Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, reveal a mindset that goes beyond mere national security. Smotrich's assertion that territories like Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan should be considered Israeli land, and his derogatory references to neighboring populations, highlight an aggressive agenda that seeks territorial expansion rather than just the defense of existing borders. However, this Zionist mentality is not confined to fringe elements. It is represented by key government officials, including those in the IDF. The dangerous belief that Israel is divinely ordained to conquer the entire region reflects a mindset that disregards the humanity of those they oppose. Therefore, such views, held by millions within Israeli society, point to a troubling trend in which extremist beliefs are increasingly normalized within the political sphere. Adding to the ongoing conflict, U.S. military personnel are stationed in Israel to operate missile defense systems like the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, THAAD, which raises significant concerns about escalation. This equipment is intended to intercept incoming missiles, but its deployment also serves as a provocative measure in a highly volatile region. region. The idea of U.S. troops acting as a tripwire in this context is dangerous, as it could easily draw the United States deeper into the conflict if attacks were to occur. Furthermore, this military assistance from the U.S. could be interpreted by Israel as a green light to pursue more aggressive actions against its neighbors, fueling the ongoing cycle of violence. This aligns with the narrative pushed by certain factions within the Israeli government, which seeks to expand territorial control under the guise of national security. Therefore, the U.S. needs to carefully consider the implications of its military support in this context, as the decisions made today could have lasting repercussions for both American interests and the broader stability of the region. In addition to the military developments, there's a psychological aspect at play. The tightening of Russian control can create a sense of despair and hopelessness among Ukrainian troops and civilians alike, making it even more crucial for Western allies to provide continued support in terms of resources and morale. Western nations, particularly the United States and NATO members, are grappling with their responses to these developments. There are discussions about increasing military aid to Ukraine, but there are also concerns about escalation and the potential for a broader conflict. The situation requires careful diplomatic maneuvering to avoid further entrenching the conflict while still supporting Ukraine in its fight against Russian aggression. Ultimately, both Israel and Ukraine are examples of how complex and multifaceted modern conflicts have become. Miscalculations, both in military strategy and political intent, can lead to significant and unforeseen consequences, highlighting the importance of thoughtful, measured responses to international crises. In addition, as winter approaches, the harsh weather conditions are only exacerbating the situation for Ukrainian troops, who are already struggling with dwindling supplies and harsh living conditions. The idea that there might be North Korean troops fighting alongside Russian forces is largely seen as a fabrication. It's a narrative that seems to be an attempt by Ukrainian officials to rally Western support by creating a sense of urgency and danger. However, the realities on the ground tell a different story. Ukrainian forces are primarily composed of their own soldiers who are valiantly trying to defend their homeland against an increasingly aggressive adversary. Moreover, Zelensky's comments about needing stronger support from allies highlight the desperation of the situation. While he speaks about the potential for new agreements and increased military aid, the reality is that Ukraine is fighting against a well-equipped and determined Russian military with fewer resources of its own. Therefore, the lack of tangible support from Western partners is a significant concern, and the Ukrainian leadership is acutely aware that time is running out. So, we can say that the narrative around the conflict continues to evolve, but one thing remains clear. Both the Ukrainian forces and their leadership are aware of the stakes. While they may hold out for a while, the ongoing challenges related to manpower and training pose significant risks to their ability to sustain the fight. On the other hand, Israel's actions are leading to an unintended consequence of unifying previously fragmented groups. The animosities between organizations like Hezbollah and Hamas are starting to blur, pushing them toward a more collaborative resistance against Israel. This unity among different factions could escalate tensions further and complicate the situation on the ground. Adding to this, Israel's aggressive military strategies, particularly against civilian populations, have drawn widespread condemnation, even from traditionally supportive media outlets like the New York Times. This shift in narrative reflects growing concerns about Israel's actions and their implications for regional stability and the broader geopolitical landscape. Therefore, the intertwining of these issues, Ukraine's struggle for survival and the evolving dynamics in the Middle East, highlights the complexities of international conflict and the critical need for strategic responses from global powers. Another important issue is that the ongoing conflict in Gaza has led to a troubling increase in violence against journalists, with a record number of reporters losing their lives while covering the war. The case of Jeremy Lafredo, who was detained and beaten by the IDF, highlights the severe risks faced by those reporting on the ground. His release came after a judge ruled in his favor, but the accusation of collaborating with the enemy reflects a broader pattern of intimidation against journalists in the region. Furthermore, the U.S. government's inaction in response to Lafredo's situation signals a troubling complicity in these violations of human rights. The failure of the State Department to intervene reflects a broader trend where leverage over foreign governments, such as Israel and Ukraine, is not effectively utilized to protect American citizens or uphold international standards of human rights. These issues illustrate the complexities of international relations, where strategic alliances often come at the cost of ethical considerations and human lives. As these discussions continue, it is essential to advocate for the protection of journalists and to hold governments accountable for their actions in conflict situations. The plight of journalists in war zones should not be overlooked. Their safety is crucial for ensuring that the truth about such conflicts is reported and heard globally. Moving forward, the international community must advocate for the safety of journalists, demand accountability for human rights abuses, and ensure that ethical considerations are not sacrificed in the pursuit of strategic alliances. By doing so, we can work towards a more just and equitable world where the voices of those documenting the realities of conflict are protected and heard. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to our channel for more geopolitical insights.